regional identity.
Prayer, God of our fathers, in whom we trust and by whose guidance and grace this nation was born.
E tua utua ka huroa tua mātua pono nā tua aroha e whanau mā e Aotearoa.
Bless these councils of the hut and give all things needed for the faithful discharge of their responsibilities.
Ka panga mai mātou ko nā mai whakatiki, ko mai ki mātou nā mai pai. Kia ara tiki pai tau mai mahi, nā mahi ki hapai akai e tia hapuri.
Give to each good health and good judgment for the decisions to be made, wisdom beyond our own and a clear understanding, so that we may promote thy glory and the welfare of all in this city.
Ko mai ke tine o mātou, tia oranga pai, nā tia pokaro, pai hoki, ki whatai, e te tikanga, mā te ranga tūka, e hoa te mataranga. Ki a te a kura me te aranga, o te kura woto pai a whakatiki.
Through Jesus, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Ko e hai, Christi, tau mātu, āti, āmeni.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. And just remind everyone to speak clearly and project their voice, and just emergency procedures so that everyone's aware. Ensure that mobile devices are switched off or on silent. Toilets out the door to the right, and the nearest fire exit is again out to the door and to the right. And we've got to congregate on the pavement in front of the building out there. And if there's an earthquake, we know what to do: drop, cover, hold. And in the event of emergency, follow the instructions of the man on my right. And we've got no other public here who will need any assistance. So, evening everybody, just before we begin, over the last 6 weeks, the CE and I met with Minister Simeon Brown regarding the response to waters, and we've had a response from him. We had the blessing of Te Kapanga o Rongamai, the Maidstone Sports Hub, and remind everyone that this weekend from 11 till 2 there is the Community Day over there, and on the 4th of February, it's interesting, we had the American Car Day, and I was a judge there. The interest in automobiles in this country, the crowd was enormous, absolutely enormous. In fact, you would have witnessed it even just a couple of weekends ago when the truck show was on at TMP at Trenton Memorial Park. The number of trucks, but the number of people sitting early on a Sunday morning, sitting on Ferguson Drive, taking photos and watching the trucks come past. And 6th of February, again, most members attended Waitangi Day celebrations at Orongamai. Again, a large crowd there. On the 10th of February, we celebrated with Multicultural Council at Taranaki Whare Tohunga over here at the Chinese New Year for the Year of the Dragon. I must say, by the time the dragons got to us in Upper Hutt, they'd attended 3 other functions on the way. And by 2 o'clock, I think the dragon was getting a little tired. It was rather energetic dancers. There was a number of them, but I think I'm glad there wasn't another one, because I'm not sure that the dragon was. No, they did a great job. And a number of councillors, a couple of weekends on the 20th, welcomed Sir Sri Moy, the peace runners that were here. It was Deputy Mayor Sales and Councillors Griffiths and Ultra that were there, and a number of runners from, all parts of the world, weren't they? Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Africa. And then just a couple of days ago, last week, I attended the installation service for Reverend Jessica and Simon Faulkner at St. John's Anglican Church. And before we begin, we should also welcome Jennifer Wild, welcome, Director, who's working in Jeff's space.
Thank you, Your Worship. Gunther has come to us from recently working
with Greater Wellington. He has quite a broad experience in the local government space, including having spent some time working for Wellington Water. So we'd just like to welcome Gunther, and he will be here to get us through to the end of this financial year. And so far, I think is finding it quite an interesting challenge.
Welcome. Okay, now let's move to declarations of interest. If we have any changes to that, will you let us know? Apologies, we have no apologies. And the public forum, item 3, we have no members of the public present. And then we move now to item 4, which is the regional collaboration on water service delivery plan. And just, it's, we have a number of recommendations there, but just to work through that as the region, I mean, and I don't say this lightly, we will be part of that process. The government's made it very clear that we need to, that the region needs to be working together. It's just still not quite what the region will include, is it, Jeff? Whether it's the size of what, and but that's part of that process working through. And I mean, I think one thing that's important as we work through that is that the minister wants everyone to work collaboratively, but it's fairly obvious early stages that the funding is going to come from local government and basically I suspect the ratepayers. And it's a matter of how all that is packaged up. But certainly doesn't, there seems to be no major shift in funding. So that'll, as I said, that'll be part of that process. So happy to open that. Any comments, any discussion? Councillor Newell.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to ask, what do you think might be different with this than what we have already been through on a number of occasions? You know, what's the new thing, the new solution that may come out of this?
Well, I think it's clear that, I mean, the structure that we're working on too, I mean, that's part of that plan, that delivery plan. From our point of view, that structure didn't work. And or hasn't worked. And it's a matter of making sure the voice on there, making sure that we work through that will be different. I think the government expects it to be different. Would that be fair to say?
Through your worship, I think the key difference is that under the previous reform proposals, this area would have been included in what was referred to as Entity G. And that was a water service entity covering, in essence, all of the Wellington region. What this is proposing is that while that option would be explored, it is not necessarily going to end up covering that same geographical area and may end up being something that perhaps covers a more interconnected part of the region, which of course would be very similar to that which is covered by Wellington Water. However, the minister and other government ministers have expressed the concern that the future was not represented by the Wellington Water delivery model. And so this is an effort to explore what a different model may look like. This process does not commit any of the councils who are participating to become part of what ultimately falls out of the process. But it does give you a voice in having a say as to how that organisation may be shaped. In terms of Upper Hutt being an integral part of the inner connected network, it could be difficult for us not to be part of it, but that is yet to be explored, and you don't have to make that decision until you see what ultimately comes out the other end of this process.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Slavs.
Thank you, and through you, your worship. So when I look at page 9, figure 2, the proposed structure for the regional approach for developing a joint water service plan. So I see that we've got councils there. I see we have the CEO group, but I don't see the mayoral forum there. Is that done on purpose? Do we know? That's my first question. And or is it anticipated that the advisory oversight group would actually have the mayors in it? I just need a little bit of clarification in there. My other issue is, so my third point with regard to this paper is that I hope that if it's to be truly independent, that one of the people that has just received severance from the 10 entities, Colin Crampton, is not one of the ones that is given the independent chair. I would hope that we would have a say as TAs that who that independent chair would be. I'd also like to know, is this just metros or is it the 9 TAs from the Wellington region? Because it's whilst it talks regional, there is metro and regional. So, there's a couple of points in here that I'd like some clarification on with regard to this. And it does kind of concern me that, as my councillor Newell has said, under the Wellington Water entity with 5 then 6, we've always been one voice, and whilst we've all had equal voices, I think at the end of the day, it's the contribution and the money and the size of the population that's probably been the unconscious bias of where those work programs have gone, and it's been substantiated by our carryovers both in OPEX and CAPEX when we've actually looked at how that work program has been, attributed. And I find it really interesting when I read all of the rhetoric that's going around that, some places get more attention than what others do, and we've always been at the lower end of it. So after the conversation here, I think it's really important that if the mayoral forum isn't part of this, then that Wayne, you should be the one that should be the voice of our council that actually sits there, because you have the knowledge of the entity right at the very beginning when we started and joined Wellington Water. So the history is there. Even though there's been 3 iterations and memorandums and agreements that we've gone and walked through, that we've gone from a CCO to what would you call it, a trusted advisor. I think we do need to get back to that CCO model, or what this government is looking for, the PPP. I don't know what it is, but those are my questions.
Thank you, but I can answer that. There was no suggestion the mayoral forum would have any role at all. Yeah.
Right.
The others. No.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I would second Councillor Swales'
Point of order,
recommendation there.
it's not even on the floor at the moment, so it's you asking for questions, not comments or.
We've got a comment to make in a minute. It'll come.
It's through you, Your Worship. Yes, it is the mayoral forum, in essence, signed off on this model. But there was no suggestion that the mayoral forum themselves necessarily wanted a direct seat or involvement in shaping this going forward. And you are quite correct that probably the most likely avenue for that high level political influence would come through that advisory oversight group. There has been no discussion at all over who would likely be the independent chair. But yes, your comment that it perhaps to be truly independent needs to be someone detached from the previous process. Otherwise, there could be an inference of influencing outcomes. In terms of the councils in the region involved, all of the 9 councils have indicated that they're taking this particular paper or version of this to their councils. I've just received an email to say that HUT have just signed off on it, like within the last few minutes. ourselves and Masterton are the other two councils addressing this matter today. And the remaining councils will deal with it over the coming weeks. In terms of they're entering into this as a process of discovery. It's not to be taken as a commitment to being part of the end product. And already the Wellington centric metro councils have indicated that they want to understand the process and what it's likely to come out of it. But they've equally indicated that this is something that they may wish to learn from rather than participate in the long term. But ultimately that decision will be made by those councils once they see the form and shape of this. In terms of the final point you raised around being a voice, that has been perhaps the single biggest failure of the current delivery model, is that ourselves being a smaller voice have struggled to be heard. And I guess while this isn't perfect, this is at least an opportunity to be at the table as one of 9, developing what a replacement proposal for delivery might look like.
Just one subsequent, so we've got a statement of intent or a letter of expectation and a statement of intent that goes until 2026. Where does that fit into this whole process that we're undergoing here? Because that's going to be signed off on at the next Wellington Water meeting. So I'm just trying to figure out in the hierarchy of things where this all sits.
Through you, Your Worship, I guess in a sense they're different things and different processes. The statement of intent is an annual requirement on CCOs, and so the current the letter of expectation that we've participated in the development of will form the statement of intent for Wellington Water for the coming financial year. That is the year starting 1 July. And it is only for that year. This process is aimed at exploring what may succeed Wellington Water and also which councils would be participating in that delivery arrangement. How quickly we transition from Wellington Water to that new model will to a large extent be in the hands of the Minister, and how quickly government can, I guess, put some parameters around what they're expecting to see as an outcome of this development process. At the moment, it's fair to say that we're entering into this process without particularly clear expectations on what government will expect to see coming out the other end and accept as being a solution.
Thank you.
There was some suggestion, Waireka, but there was also some suggestion that maybe some of the Horowhenua may be invited. That was a lot, wasn't it? Depending on whether they want. Councillor Carter.
Your Worship, from page 9 on the figure 2, which is the proposed structure for a regional approach for developing a joint water services plan. So my question is, did this come from the DIA? And is it the structure that all councils throughout New Zealand are considering? So that's my first question. And my second question is that, I'll form it as a form of a question rather than as if I'm debating on the recommendations, is that to me it seems to be overly cumbersome structure, and it much looks like a few other structures that I've seen, like the regional leadership development structure and the Get Wellington Moving structure. And so maybe it's because DIA has come up with a proposed structure, and I'm just wondering if all councils are adopting this structure or not.
Through you, Chair. This was a proposal submitted to the Mayoral Forum and then more recently to the Chief Executives Forum. It was developed by a consultant who is currently engaged by Porirua City Council. As far as I know, DIA are at this point in time not promoting any sort of version of this nationally, and this has originated at a local level.
Councillor, just a further question is, can you tell us what other councils are doing to develop a joint water services plan to fit in with the two bills that the coalition government are going to present, one in July, which is the framework, and the second one by December this year for the actual detail of to be put in place by 1 July 25.
Yeah, through you, Chair. No, this would seem to be, if not the first cab off the rank, certainly the first one that's doing anything that's publicly available. And there is one initiative that I'm aware of that may be perhaps a little bit more advanced than this, but it could be heading in a direction that may not be fully compliant, and that is the Hawke's Bay Gisborne Collective, which have been post Gabrielle, have been working on an integrated model for delivery of water services that covers their respective jurisdictions. But other than that, there doesn't appear to be anything at scale that's currently being developed.
Councillor Cash. So therefore, what other options are available for us to pursue the same objective?
Well, that's part,
It's this complicated to me model,
That'll be-
overly expensive.
that's part and parcel of working through that. That's the starting point. But that's the process, working through.
Except the memorandum of understanding specifically includes this diagram.
Well, it might do, but that doesn't mean to say that once you're working through it, I mean, that's part and parcel of working through whether that's the structure you want to go. I mean, effectively what the government have said is that regions work together and come up with some concepts. And if that's not an appropriate concept, that may be that others, councils have the same opinion, depending, that will be what works through. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is around the likelihood of us actually getting anywhere with this, with the agreement around all these 9 territorial authorities. And historically, we haven't got very far. We've worked trying to get group decisions made. Do you think that with central government setting such strict timeframes around getting it moving, and then maybe having a hand on our shoulder, it'll work this time?
Well, I mean, they've made it very clear that you've got to work together. So they haven't said what the consequences of that are, but I suspect they will get involved. Would that be correct? I'm sure they'll be watching. Yep. Councillor Beardsley.
Your Worship, I can't find in there any process around the election of the selection of the independent chair.
Yeah.
How will that be determined? Will that be elected by the members? Will that be given by government?
No, it'll be a decision made by members of that group. Won't be a government decision. Yep.
And is there any draft budget for the process? Because it's going to be coming out of the council's budgets. It says on a shared cost basis that and the secretariat. So I imagine we'll be asked for some money, which we haven't budgeted for yet.
Quick question through you, Worship. At the moment, a number of the councils involved in this, and this structure here, by the way, is not what ultimately is going to deliver the services. This is just an investigation process. A number of the councils have indicated that they had unspent transitional funding. That was money allocated via the previous government's process, and that funding was originally targeted to councils to enable them to participate in what was essentially an information gathering process. It seems like a number of councils have not, but bearing in mind that that process was supposed to be ongoing and running through this period, it in fact for most councils stopped in November last year. So there is unspent funding with each council, and the intention is to understand the quantum of that funding and I guess seek approval from DIA to see if it can be repurposed for this particular piece of work. And I guess the question is a very good one, because does the amount of work follow the available funding, or is the funding going to have to be scaled to match what needs to be done? That decision has not been made yet.
And are we planning on what we're going to do with the IAC? Don't know if that money's gone, find it within your own budgets. Would we be able to find it?
Through you, Chair, we haven't specifically, the only funding we had allocated that could be repurposed for this is that federal funding.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact amount that's potentially available, but Lisa would have that number for us. But that if we couldn't get DIA approval to repurpose that, then no, we would have to see what other funding we could find in other pockets of council funding, but they would not be significant.
We won't be on our own here, though.
Sorry.
We won't be on our own there.
I know.
But something really. Councillor Kerry?
It's just a question on when we will be nominating a
Next time we work through that, yeah. Is there any further discussion? Sorry to.
Through the chair, Your Worship, I was just going to add to it. We probably would have 140,000 transition funding available. That would be the maximum.
Don't say that too loud because I'll spend it. Councillor Carr.
All right, so para 51 says on the financial implications, there's not going to be any significant financial implications, but when I look at the structure that's proposed there and the diagram too, employing all these people who are going to be consultants or experts, it seems to me that there is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars of costs. And so I find it very strange for paragraph 51 to say there's not going to be any significant costs. I think there is going to be a cost in this, and we've seen these types of structures before and how they've involved money at the funder. And so I would have thought we would have had some attempt to find out what the cost of the structure is going to be.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, let's work our way. We've got the recommendations there.
There was a question.
Sorry,
There was a question, Your Honour.
I beg your pardon. Well, the fact of the matter is that'll be the start of the process. I mean, that'll be in that first round of just when this organisation gets together, checking and working out what the costs and the implications for individual councils will be, because I'm sure that all the other people that are participating will have the same question.
Through you, Chair, the reason that statement is worded the way it was that in the formulation of this process and documentation, all councils agreed that they would try and limit their involvement to what federal funding was available. That being the case, given that it's DIA in essence funding, there would be no financial implications to us. Of course, if that view were to change, we would have to come back to council and put that proposition to you.
Okay. So we'll come back to E, but we can take recommendations A, B, C, D, and F. Moved by councillor Newell. Second. Oh, yeah. Yep. They have a seconder first. Do we have a seconder? Yeah, councillor, Deputy Chair, Deputy Mayor Sales. Yep, councillor.
Well, I support us signing up to this protest. I just had a great feeling of deja vu, to be honest, 3 years ago when DIA funded this whole thing. They said, oh yeah, sign up to this process, it'll be optional. We can work together on a plan, and then it becomes mandatory, and then all of a sudden the assets are gone into another entity, which, hey, I don't want to predetermine the outcome. It's going to happen here. It's going to be Wellington Water owning the assets, charging their own, sending out their own bills. And that's probably what should happen, because the current model doesn't work, and there's been no other model that has been proposed that will work. So that's what's exactly going to happen. So we're going to spend a few $100,000, and I can guarantee you that will be the outcome. And I'll bet anyone in here that's what's going to be.
Okay, we have a mover, we have a seconder. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried.
Sorry, let me ask for any other ones that have comments before you move for the votes. I do, Your Honour.
Your worship.
Your worship. Well, my concern is.
We're only moving A, B, C, D, and E at the moment.
A, B, C, D, E. Yes, right, A, B, C, D, E, the whole lot. Okay.
No.
Okay, I'll reserve my comments to that.
Okay, so it's been passed. We now go back to, and we have.
Aye.
Huh?
We've got to vote.
All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. Okay, go back to E, and we have
One nomination.
nomination. Happy to,
Seconded
oh,
by.
yeah. You have councillor Kerry?
I have a nomination.
Yep.
Yeah, your worship, I think, just if I premise this by the fact that we're always a cost taker and we're always, you know, the smallest voice in the room when it comes to these regional groups, particularly in water, I think my preference is less probably political clout in that elected members room and probably project acumen. And I've nominated Chris, Councillor Carson, just through the fact that I guess he's got proven project management acumen. He's actually had a royal honour for that. And I think if we're going to be smart about this and try and look for the outcomes that we need as a council, then I think he can probably represent us well.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it to get on the table.
Any discussion? Councillor Carson?
Thank you. My concern about this, in fact, first of all, my concern is how the recommendation is, because the recommendation says agrees to nominate an elected member. It doesn't say elect a particular person. It says agree to nominate an elected member. So that's what the recommendation is. It doesn't actually say agree to nominate the worship the Mayor Wayne Guppy or Councillor Chris Carson. It says agrees to nominate an elected member. So you need to change the wording, in my view. But more importantly, my concern is, as we've seen it passed, and we've seen it in the Wellington Water Committee, the Wellington Water Committee has all representatives that are mayors. And they are political animals and they make political decisions. Now, they may make political decisions on behalf of the council, but they are still politicians. And I'm concerned that this AOG is going to go the same way. That there will be a political decision makers on that. Not people who know about setting up CCOs, who know about how businesses work, who know about all the alternative financing models, etc. They will be making political decisions. I can guarantee that because we've seen it in the past. And the greatest example is Water Committee, the Wellington Water Committee, which is stacked with mayors. And so that's my concern.
Interesting, you don't classify yourself as a politician.
Well, I won't be a politician come September 225.
Well,
There's another good
That's
example.
beside the point. The fact that you don't classify yourself as a politician. Councillor Swales.
I just want to say that under the diagram, whether you agree with it or not, it's a diagram we've got to actually look to and work with. So whilst we have the advisory oversight group, we also have a project core team. And in that project core team, it has expertise in there that actually, whether we have to pay for it and what that dollar amount is, I have no idea. But I'm assuming there's financial, economic, governance, legal advice, option analysis. All of that is there to make sure that that feeds up to the advisory oversight. It actually reports to the CE's group, but also has the ability to report back to external sources. So I think that there, when you look at that makeup, whether you agree with it or not, actually has the expertise that maybe an elected member may not have. So I don't see, yes, actually I'd like to counter, not all of the representation on the Wellington Water Committee are mayors. We have iwi, mana whenua, who are there, who are not mayors and not elected. We also have the Greater Wellington Regional Council, who is Roz Connolly, who is not actually the chair of the regional council. So that's actually not quite true.
And Wellington
What it's
was
just-
represented by me.
Absolutely, and Wellington City Council. So I think if we're going to start putting things on the table, let's be accurate and quite truthful about the landscape. So I still stand by my nomination that His Worship is an elected person and I would like to see him there as our voice.
So we have two nominations of councillor.
Could I just have the wording clarified, how it was intended by whoever wrote the document? Around that.
I'm sure it's only we just fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
What you have to do.
So I agree that we should nominate a member, that's fine.
That's what we're saying.
Right now.
Let me say, yeah, choose the person.
And the mayor actually is an elected member.
Point of order, Your Worship. I assume just in the technical process, procedural question, point. Normally in these processes, we move an amendment that elected member is replaced by a name, right? That's not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one of the.
Thank you. That's right. Yep. So we have two nominations, self and councillor Carson. Those in favour of councillor Carson.
Fine.
Yeah. Three. Those against. Those in favour, so it's been carried that the mayor will represent us on that. Okay, stay, okay. Can we now move to,
Your Worship,
Yep.
before we move, there is the opportunity to have an alternate. I don't know whether you want to put that in here or just do that from one meeting. It does in the memorandum of understanding, so it isn't a recommendation that should you want an alternate, you are able to have. I just want to say that before you move on.
what's the feeling of the meeting? Do we appoint the town councillor? You,
Your Worship, I would just say, why don't we just leave that to the occasion or
till,
advise who's available or has an interest of what might be on a particular agenda?
Yep.
councillor Kerry,
Which I will still move that, councillor Carson be nominated as an alternative.
well, the feeling of the meeting, I think is to leave it, is that correct?
Yeah.
Get a feeling from the meeting? Councillor, Beauty,
If you leave it, don't need to be included in the documents to be actually considered the alternate. I know Wellington Water, if you're not named, they don't think you're covered. They can get pretty tough. These other people around the region, they can say, no, you're not coming along, you're not the official alternate. So I know that's been the council's experience before. So we might have to take time off.
well, I'll get a feel, what's the feel of the meeting? Do we have, do we do it now or
Yeah.
at a later date?
Can.
Do it now? Okay. Do we have nominations?
Councillor Carson.
Yeah, seconder? Councillor Holderness?
Second.
Yeah, second. Councillor Holderness?
Someone like councillor Bentley, maybe more than one.
Second, do we have any other nominations? Okay, we move to, we first will, those in favour of councillor Bentley, all those say aye. Aye. Those against?
Sorry, who was that, Your Worship?
Councillor,
Bentley, I vote.
aye. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, it's been carried. Councillor Bentley will be the alternate. Okay. We now move now to the proposed registration of dog fees and charges. So look out if you're a dog owner. We've had a lot of discussion. Do we have any comments? No comments? Yes, councillor Griffiths.
Right, no, that's not fair. Will this bring it up to 100% recovery, or is it still partially below?
The director will answer that.
Your Worship. Thank you. No, this proposal is about simply maintaining the cost structure as it is provided for in the existing RFP document. So it's still the same ratio of 80/20.
Councillor Griffiths.
Another question, sorry. One of the things that I note in other spaces is that a responsible owner, is it, part of that responsible owner that being a chipped, registered animal owner, or that's something that we can look at as part of that?
Director Helen?
Your worship, I'll just check the criteria. I might be able to confirm that during the meeting. I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Councillor Hammond?
Thank you, your worship. Is this comparable to lower huts? Cost of dog registration?
Effectively, I think ours has been relatively cheaper than most areas around, and this is really trying to make up some ground. Director Helen?
Thanks, your worship. What I would say is our, like all fees and charges of the council, these fees and charges are based on compliance with our revenue and finance policy, and are specifically related to the costs to run that operation for this council. If the question could be interpreted as are our fees lower, they may very well be, but to be absolutely crystal clear, the fees that are proposed here are about compliance with our RFP and the costs that it actually required, that it actually is incurred in actually running that function for people with Upper Hutt.
Okay, we do have the recommendation. Oh, yeah, Councillor Wheeler.
Just the recommendations, I assume they're talking about option 2. It doesn't actually say them recommendations, so between lines there.
So,
Your worship, that is correct.
yes. Okay, further discussion, we'll put that to the vote. Do we have a mover for the recommendations? Moved by Councillor Griffiths, seconded by Councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it has been carried. Now move to item 6, which is the schedule of document seal. And I move that council receives the schedule of documents and confirm the actions recorded therein, and approve the fixing of the common seal to the relevant documents in connection with the decisions reported. I'm happy to move, seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Swales and Councillor Swales.
So I just have a question, with regard to the warrant of appointment. Brooklyn, it's got Hutt City Council in brackets. Does that mean they work for Hutt City Council and now work for us? I'm just not quite sure. That's on the 15th of the 12th, 2023. Warrant.
Second one down.
Yeah, second one down. We're warranting a Hutt City Council officer, or are we warranting an Hutt City Councillor? Not councillor, but employee. Yeah.
I'm not
I'm
sure.
afraid I haven't a clue.
Thank you.
We have a mover and a seconder, and we'll get the answer to that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. Now we move to the confirmation of the council minutes of the 13th of December. Are there any items to be discussed? Happy to move. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Newell, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now move to the minutes of the Policy Committee, which was held on the 12th of December. Councillor Newell.
Yes, your worship, I move that the policy committee matters confirm that the minutes of the meeting held on 12th of December 2023 are a true and correct record of the meeting. And do I have a second?
Yeah, with council moved by Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. And we now move to adopt the recommendations from the meeting. So I'm happy to move that council adopts the recommendations of the Policy Committee on the 12th of December. Do we have a second? Councillor Newell. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now go to the City Services Committee, which was held on the 7th of February. Councillor Wheeler.
Your worship, I move that the City Services Committee members confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of February 2024, a true and correct record of the meeting. Seconded, Councillor Hammond.
So we have a mover and Councillor Wheeler, seconded by Councillor Hammond. All those in favour, sorry, councillor Griffiths.
Just, maybe a typo. Councillor Carson was there and an apology.
Chair, you didn't typo.
Split personality. It was.
Apology.
There's just an apology and the present, so I just did the clarification, sorry.
Clarify that. So we have a mover.
Oh, yes.
No, it wasn't there. Moved by councillor Wheeler, seconded by councillor Hammond. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. I move that council adopts the recommendation of the City Services Committee that was held on the 7th of February. We have a seconder. Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now move to the minutes of the Risk and Assurance Committee, which was held on the 14th of February. Councillor Carson.
Worship, I move that the Risk Assurance Committee members confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of February 2024 as true and correct record of the meeting, and I call for a seconder. Thank you, councillor Wells.
That's moved by councillor Griffiths, seconded by councillor Swales. Moved by councillor Carson, sorry, seconded by councillor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. I now move that council adopts recommendations of the Risk and Assurance Committee held on the 14th of February. It's moved by myself, seconded by councillor Carson.
Yes.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. We now move to the Policy Committee, which was held on the 21st of February. Are there any items to be discussed? Councillor Newell.
Thank you, your worship. I move that the policy committee members confirm the minutes of the meeting on 21st of February 2024 as a true and correct record of the meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor.
Moved by councillor Newell, seconded by councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. And now I move that council adopts the recommendations of the Policy Committee, which was held on the 21st of December, seconded by,
Worship.
let's get a second here. Councillor Newell seconded it. Now, councillor Griffiths.
Just got, first order of business on that paper, which is apologies. Councillor Bentley and Carson were given, lateness, and is that enough? We don't have, a listing for lateness in the apologies section of this one on the paper before we did.
Sorry, we didn't.
So under apology, there isn't an apology. That did come to the meeting just late, but in the paper before this, there was an allowance for lateness. Item. I'll check it with that.
Committee notes the lateness. Councillor Griffiths. Bentley.
I was not late to the meeting by choice, the technology failed me. So
Yeah.
I don't think I was sitting at home waiting for my, eager to join the meeting.
We will note that.
Could be OIA.
And you did look sick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Felt it, so.
So we do have a mover and a seconder for the adopting the recommendations of the Policy Committee of the 21st of February. Correct? Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. I will note though that, that I know that councillor Carson had brought up about, but any transaction or anything that takes place for those, we talked about looking at some land pictures, will come back here.
Contracts committee.
But yeah, it will come back, all right? Okay, now we move to the Finance and Performance Committee, which is held on the 28th of February, and I go to councillor Bentley.
Chair, I'd like to table the minutes of the Finance and Performance Committee meeting that was held on the 9th of February 2024. And I would also like to move that those minutes be confirmed as an accurate and true record of the meeting. I'll call for a second. Councillor Holdens.
So we have a mover, councillor Bentley, seconded by councillor Holdens. Now, councillor Carson. No, she seconded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you,
No?
oh, sorry.
I was thinking that.
Okay, now, councillor Holden is to, yeah, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
We know it's been carried and we now, I move the council adopts the recommendation of Finance and Performance Committee held on the 28th of February, moved by myself, seconded by councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye. The contrary, no, it's been carried. And we now move that ends the public part of the meeting.
Legal. Response to the question, shall we receive documents?
Okay, we have an answer before we go. We have an answer from legal counsel on the schedule of sealed docs.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time to address that question. This allow, as I understand, is a trade as well as officer. We have from that.
Thank you very much, Dale.
She worship, can I ask that?
Absolutely. Anyhow, this is technology. Look how quick the answers are coming.
There was a question there about whether responsible owner status is peaked to the microchipping.
Happy with that, councillor Brooks? Okay, we now, that said, that is the end of the public sector. Thank you for participating, the public. We now have we move to public expenditure. Do I have a mover? Councillor Holden has moved, seconded by councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye.